Hello and welcome to another episode of Raw Chatter. I am your host speaking, Vicky Midwood, integrative health, nutrition and lifestyle coach, the human health optimizer, and of course, the addiction eliminator. And I have got a surprise for you guys today, not just one guest, but two. With me, I have Miranda, who is a mental health activist. This is a lady who inspires the pants off me. She has founded a heroes program and she is trying to get the word out into the masses that mental health, recovery from illness does not have to be complicated or hard. And she's got a friend here who is somebody who's actually going through her heroes program. Miranda has founded this program, the Heroes program, and she is hopefully getting it out into the UK and we do hope even worldwide. So, Miranda, would you like to start and then we'll go and say hi to Ross? And Ross, I'd love you to share some of your story and your experience of going through the program. So, over to you, Miranda.
Hi, Vicky. I'm just like smiling a lot because I've literally just realised we've got the same top on pretty much.
Yeah.
We're both wearing a pink hooded top. I mean, what are the chances of that?
Something in the air.
Thank you, yeah. Yeah, lovely to be here with you, Vicky. Yeah, like really love all the work that you're doing as well.
Tell us how you decided to founder this Heroes program and a little bit about your background and your frustrations.
Yeah, so really, Heroes was sort of born out of the need to create a solution for some issues that I identified in the mental health service provision field, I guess, in the mainstream NHS primarily. And my journey started really when I was about 14 years old. Got sectioned under the Mental Health Act after many bouts of running away from home, being put in safe houses and foster care. I got sectioned due to really poor mental health, really. And I lived in a mental hospital for about 9 months at the age of 14 years old. And within there, I was kind of able to witness the very cold, harsh medical model of mental health treatment. And while it used to fire me up with a lot of anger, I kind of turned that into just passion, will to want to change things for the better. And so skip forward 26 years now, that's really what I'm doing, really. And in Heroes, Heroes stands for Healing, Education and Recovery of Emotional Strength. And in Heroes, we're really looking at a holistic view of supporting mental health recovery. And within the program, I've placed 8 different modalities that have supported me on my own journey in recovering through the after effects of complex childhood trauma, really prolonged childhood trauma. And yeah, it's working wonders, really. We're the first people to bring inner child healing to the NHS, as far as I know. So, and that's just, yeah, it's working really beautifully for the client group that we're working with.
The beauty of what you're doing is that you are looking, as you said, holistically. And for people, most people, I think, know what that word means, but it means whole body. We're not separating the body from the brain or the mind. We're reconnecting them, because that's half the problem, isn't it? So on your Heroes program, you've mentioned there inner child and trauma issues. Tell us what some of the other things are, because it talks about the polyvagal theory and you also talk about some other things. Do you want to let people know that this is about connecting how all of the systems work?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So you're really right. They've hit the nail on the head. It's not really the body or the mind that needs to be treated. So as well as looking at the cognitive aspects of a belief system we created as a response to trauma within Heroes, we really expose those beliefs quite clearly and look at how we can work with releasing those and work with those parts of us. And we also look at the body approach because trauma does store in the nervous system. So we do a lot of the E in Heroes stands for education, because we're really educating people. And I agree with what you're saying about calling it really the body mind. A lot of great traumatologists call it the body mind, that we don't treat just cognitive, we treat the body as well. So we look at a foundation of self-compassionate practice. We're supporting people on a return to self, really, like a reconnection to the truth of who we are. We're looking to support people to build a better relationship with themselves, in full acknowledgement that when trauma happens at source, we're not always able to adequately process that at the time. So instead, that becomes a set of beliefs that we create about ourselves, the world, and others around us. And we move forward with that trauma. And that's what we class trauma as. Trauma is not what happened, because if we look at what happened, and we class that as a trauma, we can never heal from that because we can't change the past. Whereas if we look at the trauma as the living, breathing wound that's present in us with the after effects of what's happened to us, we can start to look at how we change that. How do we treat that wound? Because, you know, if somebody falls off a bike, gashes their leg open, we don't start just picking apart, what bike were you riding? What street were you on? Oh, was there anyone around? Did you notice anyone before? What happened? We treat that wound, you know, so we treat trauma as that living, breathing wound. We look at where someone's presenting now. We use the coaching model, and we look at teasing apart the beliefs and supporting people to remember who the hell they are. You know, a big theme in there is around identity, and really noticing that actually, you know, manifestation or getting towards what we want to achieve, or what we'd like our life to be, is not just about focusing on what we want. It's about focusing on who we believe we are and feeling into that. So we see a lot of people feeling very, you know, on Saturday, the group that we did on Saturday, within Forward Leads, one of our members, what she took away with her, she just said a sense of power. The word she used was powerful, you know, and we get that quite a lot in the group. So it's amazing. It's been an amazing journey. It's been an amazing journey watching people move through the program.
And I think one of the things, because I want to bring you in here now, Ross, is that it's the importance, isn't it, of a group and understanding that you're not on your own. Thinking this stuff, feeling this stuff, that the things that you've done in the past, hands up, might not be very proud of, right? But you certainly weren't the only one who's done very similar things. So, Ross, would you like to come in now and tell us a little bit about your story and what got you to join the program, and then how you're finding it?
Yeah, I'm 7 months out of drug addiction at the moment.
Brilliant.
Well, I realised I've been sort of like under the radar from the mental health system. I've not been through any treatment really to speak of, and I knew I needed some kind of treatment. I didn't know where to start, and then so it was offered to me to Heroes, it just felt right from the start. It's funny because you mentioned the importance of the group, and I was just thinking that before you said it, because, you know, it's sometimes been hard for me to sort of like vocalize feelings and thoughts in the group, but I think I've got as much from like associating with other people's healing process through it, and some of the things that we come out with when we speak. It's amazing how you feel like other people can be speaking for you almost when you're doing it. So that's one of the most noticeable things for me from it.
Brilliant. I think that's such an important thing to bring up, because sometimes we personally don't have the words ourselves, do we? But then when somebody else says it, you kind of go, oh yeah, that I absolutely know what you're talking about. And that means that I'm not the only person. And I think that's such an important part, because when we go through addiction, we don't necessarily realize at the time that that's our solution to other stuff. We just kind of want to get a grip on the thing that we feel we're out of control of, and the stuff that we therefore do to get whatever it is. And we're not proud of it, are we? We're not proud of the thoughts. We're not proud of the behaviors and the feelings. But recognizing that you're not on your own, I think, is massive, because it takes away that fear of being judged. So how have you found then? I mean, 7 months without anything is amazing. I mean, congratulations. And tell me, what was that journey like? Because, you know, I'm a long way from the early days. I'm coming up to 20 years. But I do remember very clearly what those first few months were like. So for somebody who's maybe thinking that they want to, but they're terrified, can you kind of give them an idea of what it's like, and just how important it is being a part of a program to support you?
Yeah, well, initially, I think there's that sort of stereotype, that white knuckle with the first few days, weeks. But then there's a contrast because for however long before, I essentially got rescued straight away from my situation. It was quite a dire one. I was living in what you call an uninhabitable flat, if you like, and you know, anyone who saw pictures of it would agree you'd have to be on something to be in that environment.
Wow.
And for me, it took a friend dying while I was with him. That was the catalyst that sort of brought Miranda to take me out of that environment. She was very close to the man who died as well. But I mean, and so I mean that was a large part of it. But I was going to say, for however long, probably years, I've been crying out silently to be rescued from this, wanting desperately to be out of it. But you know, you just lack the ability to move out of that yourself.
Yeah.
So that's where Miranda came in, and then so it was horrible in a lot of ways, obviously, because
cheers, Ross.
The rescue's awful.
You throw away your crutches, you're totally out of your comfort zone. It's very scary.
It is.
And it must be worse for most people in a similar situation, because obviously I've always been very close to Miranda. I've actually been staying with her, so I was in the most uncomfortable environment in that situation, being under her roof, in her care.
Right.
So that helped a lot.
Yeah.
But you know, still, we're talking about strong substances I was on, and you know, to have them, although I've been using methadone, still am, you know, as part of the treatment, it's very different to the, you know, the substance I was taking myself. So it's shock, disorientation, and panic, you know, naturally. But then obviously I know it's all positive, and I felt relief straight away to be caught in, you know, I had to let go and I was caught immediately by her. So that was really comforting.
Yeah, incredible. So Miranda, obviously you've been a part of the kind of the NHS, or you've seen how the NHS works in this field. So how did you come across, because obviously Ross has just shared there that you knew somebody who died, and that's obviously what was the catalyst for Ross to seeking help and you stepping in. So what work were you doing to be able to even be in that situation?
To be in the situation of what? Sorry, with
of being able to step in and help Ross in the way that you did.
I was in the situation of absolute devastation. I can only describe with the bereavement was so intense. I've been through a lot of hellish moments in my life, and we both have. Like, me and Ross have known each other since we're 16 years old, and we went through a lot of stuff together, you know, violence, homelessness, I used to just be addicted to cannabis, but we gained a habit in that together. And then obviously Ross went on to do harder and harder drugs. And we went through a lot of hell together, really, but a lot of good times as well. Our formative years, in our teenage years, and the friend who we lost was my first ever secure attachment when I was a young girl, you know, like I was on my own from when I was 16 years old. I lived on my own. And so before Ross even came into my life, this gentleman came into my life, and he was only 14 at the time. I was 16, and he was my first ever secure attachment. You know, he was so good to me, and he'd skive off school to come and support me. I was self-harming and I was very unwell, and he was an angel. And so fast forward, you know, 24 years or so, and him passing away sent me, I mean, I've never been through anything worse in my life emotionally than that experience in April this year. And so that extreme situation, those extreme emotions, absolute devastation of loss, agony, of that bereavement, just led me to like desperate measures. And I saw Ross really, really suffering. He was very, very ill. You were like, I wish I could show some photos. I could actually show photos. I've got my phone here if you did want the visual to go with the video part of the podcast. Ross was extremely unwell. He was severely anemic. He could hardly walk without being out of breath. His he needed like emergency blood transfusions, and the hospital said like if he hadn't come in, he probably would have died, and I didn't know that, of course. When I saw him, I was just like, oh my God. And it was the desperation, just like, I am not losing another friend who was from my formative years. From that time, I was like, I cared too much about him. And then I went back to his flat and just saw it. And I was just like, you're not staying here. I was like, you're not. I was like, I wouldn't let a dog stay here. So that's it. And it was kind of like, I didn't really even ask you, did I?
No.
But he came willingly. He came willingly.
The dragon kicking and screaming, no. Amazing. I mean, this is where it's this element of connection, of you can't really put into words how important it is for us to actually care about other human beings and show that compassion. And even when somebody's in the state that they're in, and there's a part of us that knows they've done it to themselves, but they certainly didn't do it with the intention of it being the way that it ends up being. And you've got to really have that empathy and that understanding to just go, no, I have to make a difference here. And this is what you're all about, isn't it? And so for you now, Ross, 7 years, before we know it, it will be 7 years. seven honestly, it goes blooming quick. 7 months into sobriety. And would you be able to identify now with what Miranda was saying at the start about you having a different identity, being a different person?
Yeah, although I like to think that, I mean, the different person I am now, I like to think is the old person that was me before any of this happened, just getting back to yourself. But
Fantastic. So what can you see for your future, or what would you like for your future in terms of, where you're going to live, what you want to do, and have you got the bug? Do you want to help people and jump on board as part of the program?
Definitely, yeah. I mean, part of the reason for going on Heroes was because ultimately I'd like to try facilitate it, but from an addiction perspective. But yeah, definitely in whichever ways I can. I mean, I'm a creative person. Maybe eventually that'll look like community arts or something like that. I'm not sure, but in that direction.
He's an amazing artist, really, really good. Yeah.
And this is, again, I guess, where it's almost like you have been reborn in a sense, isn't it? And I'm not taking away from kind of the religious aspect of being reborn, but it is like being born again. You're back to that human who you once were. Or for some people, and I feel that definitely for me, and I don't know if it was the case for you, Miranda, but I don't actually know who I ever was, even as a kid. So I don't think I went back to being anything, because that being was flawed from the start. I just didn't know, because it was stuff that was passed down through generational trauma and all of that kind of stuff. And this is the work that you also cover, isn't it? That's just, it doesn't tend to be even touched upon from the offerings from our wonderful NHS.
Yeah, I guess this is it. It's like we're not moving back towards something, we're moving towards something new and fresh, but it's something that's been there all along, the healing that we've had, or the healed person that's always been inside of us. But we create these identities for ourselves as a response to the learning we do as children. And the adaptations and modifications we need to create in our lives in accordance with the adaptations of abandoning the authentic self to ensure that we get our drives of survival and connection met as children. That might look like, how need I show up to make sure I'm approved of? How do I need to be around people to make sure that I stay safe? Is it safe for me to share my emotions? Can I show up as me, or do I get punished? Do I lose connection when I don't please? So we see then as trauma, as again, that trauma being the belief system, we see trauma as a modification and an adaptation that we create of the authentic self. So the authentic self has always been there since we were born, but we adapt, we modify, we change ourselves. We might people please. We might learn that we have to push people away to get the love we need, or And it's about letting go of everything we are not, to return
which
to
is
self.
powerful, isn't
Yeah.
it?
Yeah.
And that's what you just shared as well, isn't it, Ross? That you let go. You were able to let go, because I think that's the key, isn't it? To be able to allow in, we have to let go of the crap, and allow in what we need to actually help us to find, as you said, our true authentic self. And this is the joy, because I think the exciting bit of it, obviously, you've still got one module to go, and then what you are going to potentially do and becoming a facilitator and stuff means that who knows, but it's exciting. That's the bit that I love about what I do. And I'm sure you're the same. And Ross, I think you're going to be as well, is because when you watch somebody starting to heal and transform, there is nothing that lights you up more, is there, than seeing somebody being able to do things and think in a way that they never thought was possible.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. And that's really strong with heroes when you see it from inside. Yeah.
Yeah. So what do you feel that you would like to kind of tell people listening, if they are wondering about, how do I get involved in this? What do I need to do to reach out to somewhere like to either you or to Ross, Miranda? How does somebody find out about it? Is it just in the north of England, or is it going to be rolled out further? What's happening?
Well, at the moment, we're moving towards a citywide rollout in Leeds, which will be really, really exciting. We're currently based for patients across 21 GP surgeries in Leeds, and we're looking to expand in that way. But we are moving into sort of mainstream mental health system now. So I'm creating a framework which will be very replicable for me to go into different organisations. And what my role is now is I train other people to run Heroes, and I leave them with a fully sustainable service. So I've got the Heroes practitioner training, which is an 8-week, 40-hour training for people to become Heroes practitioners. And then I hand over the scripts, I hand over the modules, and then they can run Heroes. So we've got a model that's set up for expansion, and we hope to take it as far and wide as possible, really.
Fantastic. And so within that, I'm guessing that there's a lot of scope for it to grow in different areas, and you can add on different aspects to it. So like perhaps the art side of things, and bringing in more of that is always possible, isn't it, with something like this that's so new. If people wanted to sort of ask questions about whether they would be eligible, do they have to fit certain criteria? Because obviously on the NHS, there's a whole host of things that you've got to tick boxes, and if you don't tick the right boxes, you don't get offered any help. So how does it work in that sense?
We're very, very, very firm about the fact that we're open to anyone, regardless of your diagnosis or any aspects at all. All we need off you to refer yourself into Heroes for people who it's eligible for so far is name and GP surgery. That's it. We don't even have an application process. You don't have to fill out anything. We don't need to know anything in advance. You come, it's self-defined. If you're suffering with your mental health in whatever way, if you've got even severe, in inverted commas, enduring mental health issues, you're welcomed. No matter the form of childhood trauma, no matter how that presents in the world, whether you've been called personality disordered, in inverted commas, or whatever stuff they like to throw these terms at people.
Label.
Really difficult events in their lives. It doesn't matter what your form of trauma, the way it rises. We're open, and we don't use labels or diagnoses in the group unless that's something you want to pick apart.
Amazing. That's fantastic. And is it all in person?
So far, yeah, it's all in person. We do believe that's quite an important element of it. There might be considerations in the future to do some online. And like I said, like Ross might even do like an arts-based one where people do the coaching through art modalities, or an addiction-specific one, which is what we're piloting at the moment with Forward Leeds, amazing drug and alcohol addiction service in Leeds. And yeah, so there's a lot of potential for growth there.
That is exciting. And as you say, I mean, you can, if you set up a group, you can run it online if people can't get there. But I think there is something, just, I can't put a word on it. There's an X factor when you're actually in person. Yes, it's to do with energy and vibration. Obviously, you don't get that when you're online, but also you can actually physically touch people, and I think that that's important as well. So for you now, Ross, what do you feel is something that perhaps you'd like to share on this podcast that maybe would inspire people, or that you just want to say that you think is important for people to hear?
For me, it's about getting out of your comfort zone. I think that's the main gist of it for me. In any way, it's always positive when you leave your comfort zone. I think the main thing.
I love that, because so many people are terrified, aren't they, of pushing past that comfortable bubble. But that's where change happens. So, Miranda, for you, what would you like to leave people with? I always like to say to people on my podcast, what's the one thing you would like people to sort of leave here knowing or feeling? So, over to you.
Really, that recovery is always possible, change is always possible, and it's self-defined. Recovery is not an end point to get to. It ebbs and flows, and that's okay. It's always possible to create effective change in your life, and long-lasting change in your life. Don't give up.
Don't give up. I think that's such a powerful and important message. And I think I'm just going to add to that is there is no shame in admitting that you are defeated. You need to reach out for help. You can't do it on your own, can you? It's just not.
There's so much we can do on our own, and with working with the parts of us that are suffering. We don't want to manage parts or get rid of parts of us that are in suffering. There's so much we can do working with the parts of ourselves by ourselves, but really reaching out for help is so important. And even if you don't have a loved one in your life that you feel like you can do that with, there are so many helplines out there that can kickstart the process. But it's the process of expressing it where we are able to process the most. And for some people that might be through art, etc. But verbally processing can be very helpful. So please share. You're never alone with your suffering. Like Ross said at the beginning, other people get it. It's a lot of the time. You might think that it's something shameful, but there's other people who will understand.
I think that's such an important message to leave people with. Thank you. Obviously, we'll put all of the details of how to connect with you in the show notes. And obviously, if you're listening, it will be there as well. The description will be in YouTube. Clickable links, folks, so you don't have to leave the platform. I am going to leave you with this, as I always do. We only have one life, as far as we know, and one body. So please look after it, because it is looking after you. Until next time, take care of yourselves. Thank you. Thank you.
Lovely.